So I built my first video game demo in just under 300 hours using the help of AI. And I want to use this video to talk about how I did it, why I did it, and such. The first thing I'm going to say is that I have a lot of respect for game developers who spend hours and hours refining their craft and being able to put out games where they spent loads of time coding and effort put into it. I really do respect that. And there was a short period of a couple of weeks where I was sort of jumping into the coding, doing a few tutorials and such. However, when, probably I think back in June this year, I played around with AI and coding, and within about 20 to 30 hours, I was able to make a very ugly looking but functioning combat scene. And this is where I then realized, right, well, could I do more? And I'm going to be honest, once I'd actually made that demo, which took just under 300 hours, it then made me realize how much more was possible. And for reference, what I mean is that I used, say, ChatGPT to write all of the code for my game, to make all the images for my game, and then I used Runway to turn those images into videos for my game. Now, I'm going to be honest, my game is far from beautiful. It's the first game I'm making, and the demo at the moment is pretty rough because I had to somewhat rush it to get it out in time for the Steam Fest. So I understand it's not the best looking thing. And I'm still working on it at the moment, and the plan is to get the full game out by December, the end of this year. So honestly, through this journey, I realized a few things. I realized that this approach cuts a lot of time out, and I see it pretty much as a shortcut, right? Where typically speaking, like especially for first-time game developers, they're probably going to be spending at least maybe 1,000, even more hours to get their first game out. And from what I'd seen, a lot of these sort of developers are going to be spending 2, 3, maybe even more years to get their first game out. Now, at the rate that I'm going at, I should be able to get my first game out within, perhaps 600 hours. And again, I want to say that I have plenty of respect for game developers that put, tons of time into it. However, I do believe that this approach that I'm doing is a more streamlined way to build meaningful things. Because I'll be honest, right? I know there's people out there using AI to make games, and they might just be mass producing random games, and that's obviously that. But I really enjoy the creative process of being able to turn my ideas into something which is actually playable and is something that's there. And I think this is a really viable route for other people that want to perhaps, divert away from perhaps the job that they're working or such, to work on something that's more meaningful to them and allows them to build stuff, right? Because you no longer have the coding roadblock, and even images for your game, assuming you're making something of a 2D game, you can also make with ChatGPT, for example. So I'm basically going to be continuing to do this, and yeah, it is pretty much like the way I'm doing it is I'm pretty much just getting ChatGPT to write the code, and I obviously explain the sort of thing that I'm looking for. Any debugs or issues that I run into, I'm basically copy and pasting that into ChatGPT and getting it to either figure out what's going on and then to fully update the relevant script so that I can then keep going forward. Now, yeah, this is still difficult, and this is still meaning that I have to still put in the work. Obviously, like I said before, I see this as a shortcut compared to what most game developers do, right? But I genuinely feel like this is a better path forward for a lot of people. Because, it's effectively cut a lot of time down that I would have been spending having to learn code and such. And sure, it might not be the normal way, but I genuinely believe that this could be a really good way forward. Now, the last thing I just want to leave us off with is this thing is that when I sit down to play a video game, what I really care about is the game good? Is it enjoyable? And depending on the sort of genre you're playing, it might be, is it relaxing? Is it competitive? Does it reward me? And such. Very rarely, you're thinking about the game developers or game developer themselves. And if there is a game developer that has spent 6, 7 years to make a game and you're playing it, you might have some sort of thought of, okay, this is pretty cool. But generally speaking across the board, when I'm playing a game, I'm thinking, well, like I said, is the game good? Is it enjoyable? I don't really care so much about the game developer, how long they necessarily spent. I mean, it might be nice, but generally speaking, I want to know if the game's good or not. So this is why I think, well, if someone spent, for example, 4 years to make a game and someone else has spent 6, 7 months to make a game, I'm going to look at which game is better and which is more enjoyable for me. And so this is why I think, well, yeah, sure, maybe I perhaps haven't put in as much time. But if the game is good and it's enjoyable, and for me, like if I'm playing an AI assisted made game, if it's enjoyable, I don't really care about the rest of that. So that's really the point I want to drill home because look, I have tons of respect for the people that put in hours and hours, spend years making a game. But I think with the AI approach and the way that AI is coming about, I think, look, if you're someone who is already making a game or is interested in making a game, I genuinely think that using AI is actually the better approach to do. And that is the more ideal thing that I would recommend because there's less of that coding sort of roadblock. But I think a lot of it is more so building something that you want to build. The game I'm building, I'm really sort of enjoying building. At the moment, it's more of a story-rich game and a bit of sort of strategy. So it is just building out that story. But I think once I can put it all into place, that's going to be something which I'm going to enjoy playing, but also hopefully other people will as well. So I know this is probably more of a controversial topic, but let me know your thoughts down below. And yeah, just generally speaking, if actually you would be interested in looking at perhaps making your own game through AI, because I know I used to look at coding as this massive roadblock of having to learn loads of stuff, but with AI, although it is still somewhat challenging, it's obviously not as sort of difficult and taking as much time as it would be with coding. So let me know your thoughts on this video, and I'll chat soon.